Yo, what's up? This is Jay Dennis, and we're back with another Ranked and Reviewed. And today we're going to be doing, one of the greatest melodic death metal bands of all time, and that is Arch Enemy. It's a band I've been listening to once again since high school, and much like my Norma Jean and Muse rankings, I'm doing Arch Enemy, three bands that are very much like each other, because they recently put out a new album. And by recently, I mean back in August. We're looking at 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 studio albums here. And this one kind of took a little bit of a while because as great as they are, some of their stuff is a bit repetitive. They've never really truly variated from their sound. So sometimes it can be hard to rank bands like this, like Black Dahlia Murder or... sorry, that's my only example at this time. Rest in peace, Trevor Sternad. But at any rate, I thoroughly enjoy this band, and what's exciting about them is over 11 studio albums, they've had 3 vocalists. And out of 11 albums, I'm mainly familiar with like 4 or 5 of them, but now that I've listened to them all, I feel pretty good about this ranking. Of course, I'm going to give you my top 10 at the end. There were two-way ties, but overall ranking this band was pretty easy, and I was actually pleasantly surprised with how it turned out. So if you're a fan of any particular era or one vocalist over the other, I think you might find yourself satisfied with this ranking, or if you just have enjoyed all their work, I think you'll be satisfied with this ranking. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. At the number 11 spot, the bottom spot, by the way, the spread is basically like a C plus up to a A. Number 11 spot goes to their first album, Black Earth. Studio albums go from 1996 up until a couple months ago, August of 2022. Their first 3 albums had this guy, I think his name was Johan. And the thing about Arch Enemy is the fucking music has always been incredible, but I think what maybe differentiates the quality of the overall sound or the album is the vocalist. Johan's not a bad vocalist by any means. I just don't think his style really fit with this band for the first couple of albums. You're going to hear me talk a little bit more about that on different Johan albums, but at least for Black Earth, sounds a little bit out of place to the point where I'm already going to go ahead and drop this. I'm going to go ahead and drop this particular album. I have to actually look it up on Spotify. Okay, Root of All Evil. It was a 2009 compilation released where Angela re-released a couple of songs from their first 3 albums, to the point where songs like Bury Me an Angel sound way better with Angela on them. So it's just a style difference. I hate to shit on Johan this early in the video, but this is their weakest album. And it's really not even close. I'll probably never go back and listen to this album again. But if you're an old school mellow death fan, especially from the 90s, like you like earlier In Flames or Arch Enemy or other bands of that guild, you'll probably like this. But it sounds more like, kind of like hardcore, kind of like, I don't know how to fully describe the vocals, but they're just not as growly, they're just not as death metal-y. They sound kind of like more like hardcore, maybe like doom metal, if I'm not mistaken. I don't really listen to that genre. But Dark Insanity is the only song I might like, but Bury Me an Angel is a great song, but it sounds way better with Angela. But the music's fucking awesome. Fucking Michael Amott is one of the nastiest guitar players alive. I've always enjoyed him. So that's the bottom spot. Sorry, I don't have much to say about it. It's just, kind of a forgettable album, but worth listening to if you're a fan. Next up at the 10 spot is Stigmata, their second album. Another Johan album from 1998. This is actually an improvement, though. Instead of being like a C album, it's like a B-. But again, songs like Beast of Man sounded better with Angela, in my opinion. But Beast of Man, Stigmata, Sinister Mephisto, and Tears of the Dead, all worth listening to. But beyond that, not really anything super enjoyable to listen to. The music is still once again solid, great melodic death metal, solo work, lead work, riffs, evil sounding work. They hadn't played in C standard yet on these albums. I feel kind of ignorant for saying this. I kind of forgot what it sounded like, if it was just like drop B or if it was like a lower standard tuning, but it just doesn't really sound like the Arch Enemy that I grew up with. So wasn't easy to get attached to this, and it's pretty easy to put this, towards the bottom. Stigmata. Next up at the number 9 and 8 spot, two-way tie. I'm going to give the slight disadvantage, though, to Chaos Legions. This is the last album to have Angela on it. Angela Gossow, I believe her name is, and second vocalist. Basically, like, unless you're a modern-day fan, Angela's probably, like, their most iconic and most, like, commercially successful. Like, their golden years were with Angela, but I'd make a argument that Arch Enemy might be having a freaking huge renaissance right now. But anyway, Chaos Legions was their last album with Angela, and it was also their worst album with Angela because it just sounded like, I'm going to use language from, I believe it was Metal Trenches, that also ranked this band and did a good job. I usually watch other YouTubers who do rankings just to get an idea of where they're at. Doesn't affect my ratings or rankings, but I like to hear insights in case I missed anything. His language was, it sounds like a retread of older work, and I couldn't agree more. The only songs that I really enjoyed, I guess, were Under Black Flags. I don't have any specifics to talk about with like riffs or solos or lyrics or hooks. It just sounds like a solid enough like low B album, but it's just kind of repetitive. There's like no intensity. There's no sense of urgency. There's always going to be good lead work and some good guitar work on pretty much all Arch Enemy albums, but just the vocals were nothing exciting here. It definitely sounded like Angela's last album, and regardless of what was going on with them personally, just nothing exciting here. It didn't sound like an earlier Angela album. Nothing catchy, nothing like hard-hitting where the vocals really complement the guitar work. So it was just a bit of a slog to get through Chaos Legions, and I probably won't go back and listen to it again. To finish off this tie with the slight advantage, though, probably Will to Power at the number 8 spot, which is the second album with Alyssa. Came out in 2017. Much like Chaos Legions, kind of a slog to get through, but just partially easier. The World Is Yours, The Eagle Flies Alone, Reason to Believe, Murder Science. Pretty good chunk of songs towards the middle of the album, but other than that, just nothing really too exciting here. I don't think that Will to Power had the intensity or the hunger that like War Eternal have if we're just like talking purely about Alyssa albums. And I think this was the debut album with Jeff Loomis, and I have to say, as a guitar player and as a fan of Jeff Loomis, who's enjoyed him in like several bands, I just don't think this was the big debut that he was supposed to make. I think he made more of an impact on their last album. So not a whole lot specific to say about Will to Power. Only partially better than Chaos Legions, but I say it's a tie. But thus far, weakest album with Alyssa, but still much better than, the bottom two albums. Next up, we have Burning Bridges, a Johan album this high up. How nice. Burning Bridges is what this band could have been with Johan. His freaking vocal range got more exciting. It sounded a bit more cohesive with the music. The music itself was awesome, to the point where the opening track, The Immortal, sounded as good with Johan as it did with Angela. So that's shout out to them. And I'm not trying to shit on Johan. The guy's an awesome vocalist. I just think his particular style didn't fit with that. So Johan, if you're listening to this, like, respect, man. You were doing what I wanted to do when I was a freaking like little kid. Although I do different genres myself. Anyway, a lot easier of an album to get through. It flows better, higher quality songs. You got The Immortal, Pilgrim, Silverling or Mining, whatever it's called. Demonic Science, Seed of Hate. All solid tracks. Great vocal work, great lead work. Really nothing excellent thus far that's like memorable or nostalgic for me, like some of these higher ranked albums I'm going to get to, but Burning Bridges is definitely an excellent way for Johan to leave the band on a high note and to pass the torch to Angela. Next up, we have another two-way tie where I'm going to give the slight disadvantage to War Eternal, the first album with Alyssa, and I think this is actually one of Arch Enemy's more popular albums these days. I just listened to it again, and it sounded a little better on the second listen, but now we're actually getting into some like really high quality Arch Enemy here. Like everything from here on is like great or excellent. Favorite track off this album is Stolen Life. You got a couple of awesome tracks in a row with War Eternal, As the Pages Burn, No More Regrets, You Will Know My Name. Songs like Avalanche, I preferred the music over the vocals. And oh yeah, Down to Nothing, I also enjoyed that one too. So a great, a great debut by Alyssa. I'm sorry if part of this ranking already sounds kind of boring, like I'm just saying what I like, but I'm not going into specifics. I'm not getting into feels or like technique or anything like that. That's going to be more for like the top 4 albums. These bottom albums, this bottom half, and then some, it's a little harder because I don't really have any memories associated with these albums, but it is excellent mellow death work, excellent lead guitar work with Michael Amott and I think his brother Chris Amott, however you say their names, if I even got them right. But at any rate, I just love the vocal style of Alyssa. I think she did an excellent job stepping into this band, stepping into Angela's shoes, and I'd probably make an argument that in some ways she's probably the best of the 3. So War Eternal, great debut for them, and to finish off this 2-way tie and get into some more specifics as to why I love these particular albums, let's get to the number 5 spot, which is Rise of the Tyrant, the supposed black sheep of this band's discography. I actually listened to this album quite a bit when I was a junior in high school, and what I loved about this album with Angela is the fact that there's so many hooks on here. Almost every chorus has a accompanying guitar lead that just makes you like feel uplifted and like heavy, and there's like heavy riffage underneath that. And songs like The Last Enemy or I Will Live Again or In This Shallow Grave, like all these songs have like memorable choruses with, like I said, good lead work to help carry the otherwise. It's making mellow death like catchy. The freaking shreddiness of Blood on Your Hands to open the track, the lead work is just disgusting. The Day That You Died, all great songs. It doesn't close on the highest note in my opinion. I was never the biggest fan of like the Great Darkness or Vultures. Not that they're bad songs, but they're just not my favorite. I was always a big fan of like the front half of the album. But yeah, the thrashiness of Last Enemy and like In This Shallow Grave, it's an excellent album. I think it's highly underrated. It's still aged well, and it's not just an album that I enjoyed because of like nostalgia, high school memories, but I just still think it holds up today and is partially better than War Eternal. All right, let's see if I can do the top 4. See if I can do the top 4 in the same amount of time here. These albums are the tits though. And not just because the vocalist has them. But the number 4 spot, God, we have Doomsday Machine. This album sits pretty high up, mostly because there's like 2 godlike tracks on here, and it's 2 of the singles. It's fucking Nemesis, which is one of the first 2 songs that got me into Arch Enemy back in like 2005, 2006, when I was really getting into like metalcore and like heavier stuff, even some melodic death metal. Just hearing that opening tremolo pick and riff of the open A sharp, and just the evil like lead work that is above it with the riffage is like Doomsday Machine, and predominantly the singles like I Am Legend and Nemesis, the 2 songs that really carry this album towards the higher spot. Those are like the sounds that in the song, like, you know, they're playing in C standard, and these songs are largely like in like a C minor key, I believe. So the lead work really takes me back to like that mid-2000s golden age of metalcore sound, when a lot of bands were playing in drop C, and you just had those big loud choruses and those insanely good leads that were just making metal music more accessible and more fun, but you were still also just able to fucking get down and get brutal with it. And songs like Nemesis, the outro to Nemesis, or I Am Legend with that fucking perfect bridge and that lead guitar work that leads to an awesome like guitar solo that's kind of technically like an exercise, but it's just really memorable, and I played it so many times. I Am Legend is like if you think of like Death Clock or Metalocalypse and like Thunder Horse, which is basically like a super fun song to play on guitar because it just sounds like a series of like guitar exercises that are catchy riffs. That's what I think of I Am Legend. So those two songs are a huge reason why I got into Arch Enemy. Beyond that, the rest of the album, they got a little bit more, experimental on this one. They kind of slowed it down, but it's still largely like a death metal album. But they kind of slowed it down. It's not as fast or as thrashy as, say, like Anthems of Rebellion or something. But Enter the Machine's a solid opening intro. Taking Back My Soul has its own merits. My Apocalypse gets a little bit repetitive, but it's still good for what it offered back in 2005. But most of my love for this album comes from those two singles. I don't have really any huge opinions about the other songs in the album. So let's just go ahead and move on to the next one. Doomsday Machine is largely one of the best because of fucking Nemesis and I Am Legend. And then the rest of the tracks are good enough to where it can carry it on its own. Like, I would listen to this album from front to back pretty easily. Sorry if I stroked out there for a second. Number 3 spot, which is better than Doomsday Machine, is Anthems of Rebellion. Opening on a thrashy note with Silent Wars. Another octave chord anthem of We Will Rise with great sense and great dynamics. And then, of course, the song that truly got me into Arch Enemy and my favorite song from them to this day. That is Dead Eyes See No Future. I fucking love that song. I love the lead guitar work. I love the solo, the breakout, the bridge. Just, to me, it's a perfectly written song. It's damn near perfect. I gave it a 9.7 out of 10. I don't give many songs that high of a rating. But that song is foundational to who I am as a metalhead. Wanting to write hard-hitting riffs, but with insanely good leads to accompany it. And it's just memorable vocals that go with it. And it almost sounds like she's like kind of like doing clean chorus, like choir-like vocals during the clean break. I was like, oh my God, is Angela Clean singing? I didn't know she did that. I don't know if that's her or not, but it sounds awesome. Instinct, I think, has got like some drop A shit going on with it, and it sounds heavy and awesome. And then same thing with Leader of the Rats or Despicable Heroes. But much like Doomsday Machine, most of my love for this particular album comes from a handful of tracks. Not a whole lot of opinions about the rest of the songs, but the rest of the album is worth listening to and worth giving a shot. But a lot of my love for Anthems of Rebellion from front to back come from the first couple of tracks. Still how it is to this day, but I enjoyed revisiting the entire thing. Next up at the number 2 spot, we have Deceivers, their new album. Like I said, is Arch Enemy making a fucking renaissance? Or are they in a renaissance right now where they have easily put out their best album in years? Yes. Angela sounds insane. Jeff Loomis has really stepped up. I hate to frame it like that, but like his presence on this album, along with Michael Amott, it's just more powerful. To me, Deceivers has that hunger. It's got that powerful raw energy from front to back that these more foundational albums that were like part of Arch Enemy's golden years has from front to back. Much like Norma Jean, and I can't think of another band at this very moment, but it feels like some of these bands are having like a second coming. Like, oh, hey, we were big back in the early to mid 2000s, but then we kind of fell off for a while. But now we're back. It's the 2020s. Fuck the pandemic. Now we're going to put out some of our best music, whether we have new band members or not. And I think Arch Enemy did that. They fucking hit the ground running with Handshake from Hell, which, if I'm not mistaken, it's got insanely good clean vocals. I think they fit beautifully. They're almost like implementing like some power metal. That's what they did with Doom Machine too. They implemented more power metal elements with that one. Deceivers fucking implemented those elements perfectly. The heaviness. If you weren't a huge fan of the clean vocals or the power metal, you'd be a huge fan of Deceiver, where they bring back the full heavy and the full thrash. My favorite song on the album is Sunset Over Empire. I just love that instrumental break that happens between like the chorus and the pre-chorus before she says it's the end of an era, stuff like that. This is an album that, although they're unfortunate memories, I've started making memories to this one. And to me, Sunset Over an Empire kind of captures that feeling that I've been having these last couple months as I navigate some personal difficulties in my life. Albums like The Deceivers have really gotten me through a difficult time. House of Mirrors, fucking love that intro lead work. That's the hook. That's the catchy, memorable guitar work along with great vocal work that makes me remember powerful albums like Doomsday Machine or Anthems or Wages of Sin. We're just talking about Arch Enemy, but like it harkens me back to like the other golden age of metalcore albums, like As I Lay Dying's the album with Through Struggle and Darkest Nights, or End of Heartache from Killswitch. And I know Arch Enemy's not a metalcore band, but the guitar work is a little bit reminiscent of that guitar style. And then it closes on a solid note with Exiled from Earth. Beautiful song, beautifully heavy. But yeah, fucking Deceivers, man. Best album they put out in years. And it makes me excited to have gotten back into this band. And it looks like their future is very bright with Alyssa. An album like this definitely kind of makes a case that although we don't need to manufacture a war here between who's the best vocalist, I'd kind of make the case that Alyssa is. Angela's insane. My favorite stuff from her, from Arch Enemy, is largely from her. But I'm deeply impressed with Alyssa's range and the fact that she's throwing in some clean vocals now. Just objectively speaking, but I kind of like her style a little bit more. It kind of leans more towards the metalcore side, but she hits the death metal growls and everything really well too. It's just a preference thing. I'm not trying to shit on Angela. She's an excellent vocalist too, but if anybody was going to step into the shoes and even surpass a little bit, it was definitely going to be her. Number one spot, though, and it's kind of not even close, is Wages of Sin. Even though this wasn't particularly the songs that got me into Arch Enemy, this was the full album that got me into them. While I was listening to like Nemesis or Dead Eyes See No Future, I got access to Wages of Sin, and let me tell you, to this day, the way that from front to back, Deceivers is high quality material with some excellent tracks, Wages of Sin does that too, but it takes it to a whole other level. The consistency of this album is damn near flawless. It's the easiest one to listen to from front to back. It's got the most excellent amount of tracks on there. It's got a couple of my top 10 favorite tracks on there, including the opening track, Enemy Within, which really captures that sound that was going to be coming up in the 2000s of that metal era with that beautiful piano intro that leads into like just this fucking nasty guitar work. And just the catchiness coupled with Angela's vocals and her lyrics, like it fits beautifully. I think Wages of Sin really perfectly captures like the best of what Arch Enemy can offer, which is like, yeah, melodic death metal, like the powerhouse genre that is death metal, but couple that with the melodic side and the catchy side at times, it makes this otherwise harsh genre very fun and easy to listen to with songs like Enemy Within, Burning Angel, which is like the We Will Rise of Wages of Sin, except it came out before, so We Will Rise would actually be like the anyway, the Burning Angel of Anthems of Rebellion. I've always loved that opening riff of Burning Angel and then the lead that kicks in and then the lead work that happens during the chorus. It just, for the year 2001, Wages of Sin was super ahead of its time. Listen to a song like Ravenous and you kind of feel like you're listening to like a roided out Iron Maiden almost with like that opening riff. Dead Bury Their Dead, another great song, but one of my other favorite songs on here, the first Deadly Sin, just that nasty guitar chord, dun 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 dun, and then for the verse and the chorus, the speed fucking doubles in time, and it just sounds insanely good. So I got a lot of great memories of this album. For albums like Anthems of Rebellion, Wages of Sin, and Doomsday Machine, I'm largely still like loving and talking about the same songs I enjoyed from my childhood. There hasn't been like a resurgence of, oh, here's a song I missed. I actually like that one now more too. No, my favorite songs from my childhood are still the same that they are today, including some new ones from Alyssa. But if I were to include something, I'd say Savage Messiah, Dead Bury Their Dead, and Snowbound. Definitely tracks I probably slept on a little bit more back then, but definitely enjoy now more today. So it's not even close. Not that Wages of Sin shits on Deceivers, but Deceivers is like a B+ album, and Wages of Sin is an A. If I'm being really nitpicky, if I'm being some guy that doesn't have anywhere near the level of musical talent that any of these people have, from the listener's perspective, I'm just giving my very arbitrative grades. Arch Enemy, you guys are incredible. I am not worthy. And thank you for having such an incredible discography and for continuing to put out high-quality music to this day. So let's recap real quick. Least favorite to most favorite: Black Earth, Stigmata, Chaos Legions, Will to Power, Burning Bridges, War Eternal, Rise of the Tyrant, Doomsday Machine, Anthems of Rebellion, Deceivers, and Wages of Sin. Top 10 tracks: Silent Wars, Exiled from Earth, The Day You Died, In This Shallow Grave, Sunset Over an Empire, Burning Angel, Enemy Within, Nemesis, I Am Legend, Out for Blood, The First Deadly Sin, and Dead Eyes See No Future. So I think favorite songs from roughly 5 of their albums. So comment below what you agree or disagree with. How would you rank them differently? Does anything I say resonate with you? What do you think of their new album? Who's your favorite vocalist? If I had to rank the vocalists, I'd say the best is Alyssa by a little bit, but then Angela, and then Johan. No shit, no hate on Johan, but that's just how I feel. So thank you guys for listening. Subscribe, and maybe I'll catch you on the next one. Peace!